I want to talk a few moments about global trade. I think most of us would admit that we like the benefits that we derive from global trade. Uh, from global trade, we get cheaper prices. We tend to, on in the broadest sense, to get better quality products. You can't just take a single category and rank things against price and quality. That's not going to happen. But overall, we tend to get better quality products because of global trade. One of the cool things about global trade is that we get exposed to products we wouldn't ordinarily be exposed to. I'm going to come back and talk about that in a minute. And then the other benefit that we get is that economies get access to products that they need that they can't produce themselves. For example, some countries might not be producers of oil, but they need it. Other countries may not be able to grow certain products. For instance, tea is difficult to grow in certain climates, so it has to grow in countries where they have the suitable climate. Back to the exposure to products we wouldn't ordinarily get. I grew up in England because my dad was in the Air Force and my mother is English, and so I got exposed at an early age to English chocolate. And I have to confess that there's very little American chocolate in my house because I really like English chocolate. I also like other European type chocolates. I just think they make a better product. But that's a matter of opinion and a matter of taste. I'm sure that each of you has something that you like that's either American or not. I give you a small challenge, so think about this. Well, two challenges actually. Number one, what is a product that's from another country that you really like, but that you actually have an American substitute you could buy? Another challenge I offer you is to find a room in your house where there are many products and that none of them are made in China. This is a tough challenge. There have been people who I think you can find videos of them online. They've been interviewed on television. I think one family wrote a book, and they went for a year without buying a product made in China. I'm not sure why they did it. I can't remember, but it's definitely a significant challenge. Some other things that happen within the global economy is that entities emerge that try to create a system that is fair. Obviously, when you have a large, powerful country or a large, powerful entity like the European Union, big countries with a lot of influence could really be bullies in the global marketplace. But there is the World Trade Organization, which has almost 200 member countries, that tries to evaluate policies by different countries and try to establish policies that are fair across the board for both small and large countries. You can do a little research on the World Trade Organization, and there are those who believe that the larger countries are kind of required to give in a little bit and allow for smaller marketplaces to have some benefits that ordinarily the larger entities would have. Some people don't agree with that. You may or may not, but something that I've been reading about lately, and I haven't quite formed an opinion about it myself. Some other things that you might think about in the global infrastructure are trade agreements. For instance, America is engaged in a trade agreement with actually several trade agreements. The most significant one, the one that we hear the most about, is NAFTA. And NAFTA is a trade agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. It's called the North American Free Trade Agreement because we are all in North America. And what this does is allow for us to have borders that are slightly more porous for the movement of products to and from each of these countries. It eliminates certain tariffs and quotas on products that used to exist. In other words, America might say, well, we won't charge a tariff on product X if you'll no longer charge a tariff on product Y. And so they make these agreements so that it allows for a bit freer flow of products and services. U.S. is also engaged in the Central American Free Trade Agreement. I believe the Dominican Republic is now involved in that one. Every now and then you'll hear some talk about these agreements because sometimes they try to bring in other countries. I believe there's been an issue with bringing Colombia and so forth. Obviously there are disadvantages that have emerged from global trade. Because companies can operate wherever they want in the world within certain guidelines. Um, for instance, America has seen a loss in labor. Companies have said, well, it's cheaper to employ people in China or in other Malaysian countries or in the Dominican Republic. And so it's cheaper to engage labor there, so we'll go and build our plants there. And so that has meant a loss of jobs in the United States. There are other reasons why American jobs have moved overseas. It's not just global trade. I do want to make that clear. But I'm not going to get into that. That is one argument for a disadvantage of global trade. I also mentioned the World Trade Organization and some of the disadvantages that some of the larger, more powerful countries have been put into because of trying to create a more fair system. I will remind you, fairness is in the eye of the beholder. But again, there are disadvantages to global trade. Another one would be product quality. Remember I mentioned that one of the advantages that sometimes we get quality, an improvement in quality because of global trade. Well, the reverse can also be true. I think many of you are aware of the stories of products that have come from China, for instance, that had chemicals in them that do not meet the standards of the United States. And we've seen other kinds of environmental environmental problems that have come out from countries that don't have as strict environmental standards as the United States does. And so we then tend to see some of those things that come into our products, but also the contribution that they make to the general environment of the world. I'm going to close it there, and we'll end up having some more discussion in class, obviously, about global trade.